What's up guys, it's me Lumos Theromax, and today we're actually here to talk about Bleez, the wildly powerful Red Lantern, and pretty much her scaling, but I'll also be doing a general review of her origins, as well as just some general story arc things. And be sure to thank Maverick, one of my OG members of the Theromax Corps, who actually requested this video. It's pretty hard to talk about a Red Lantern other than Atrocitus for once, so it's pretty cool to dig into this because I pretty much did all of the scaling for all of the Red Lanterns, and I look forward to sharing that with you guys while I did this Bleez stuff as well. So be sure to like and subscribe because 98% of you guys are not, and with no further ado, let's find out how powerful Bleez is. Bleez's first canonical appearance was actually during Final Crisis of all places, during the Rage of the Red Lanterns tie-in, where we first see the Red Lantern Corps established. And she was, as I'll say down the way, is one of the first Red Lanterns to really get it recruited. She was once an angel in a faraway space sector who was a wildly notable princess that kind of received the negative end of the Sinestro Corps War, because Sinestro started recruiting a variety of people and she always said no to any suitors or mates who would show up trying to convince her to marry them. She thought all that shit was stupid. But the problem was the Sinestro Corpsman rolls up and basically claims her for his own and forces himself upon her, and she receives a red ring, having realized she was going to be stuck with this man for the rest of her life, and shreds him apart. However, during the New 52, things get a little bit different whenever it comes to her origin story, because it gets a lot more graphic, and she actually has this guy run up on her, rip her wings out, and unfortunately the guy rapes her. Pretty rough stuff, but to be a Red Lantern, it's gotta be rough. And this is exactly why she hates her mother and blames her for her fate, even going to her grave and spitting on it, blaming her for being a Red Lantern. But this isn't a character analysis, this is a scaling video. So let's get to the scaling. So let's just start off with hacks. And whenever it comes to Bleez, she has got quite a few of them. I mean, she's a lantern after all, and of course lanterns are known for their large variety of hacks and abilities. So her most notable hacks is her red napalm liquid breath that all of the Red Lanterns have. This stuff is wildly corrosive. And this red napalm hack can actually drain Green Lantern rings of their charge. But specifically Bleez is one of the most notable Red Lanterns, and thus it's by far the strongest. Take for example both the time here where she overpowers multiple Green Lanterns empowered by a Blue Lantern ring just with one strike of that stuff unto itself. Not to mention later on, she can produce so much of this stuff. She literally fills an entire construct full of this stuff before it explodes. Now, she can also amp herself with the rage of others, which is a unique hack, of course, that most Reds have, as well as she basically has sway over other Red Lanterns instinctually, which is really impressive because Atrocitus is the only other person who's shown any capability to control other Red Lanterns. Her napalm blood hacks are actually pink, which is also very weird. She can infect you with rage, and keep in mind that also amps her because, as I said earlier, she gets empowered off of your rage. And she actually does this multiple times, and she can even infect you with her blood and make you rage out. And this is torturous, dude, because it's cruel and unusual punishment that will last years if you really want. She can also sense rage entire space sectors away, is also really adept at tracking lanterns as well as energy signatures across the universe, and can use blood hacks outside of just the napalm blood hacks, like when she worked together with a few other Red Lanterns to stop a giant red blood tornado that Atrocitus had that was threatening an entire planet. Attacking Bleez doesn't do too much because Pain also amps her, and she can even just directly invade your mind with rage hacks and mind hacks you to being raged without even the blood hacks of putting her blood inside of you. So she's got some pretty impressive rage-based hacks that she can inflict on her opponent. Bleez also has some pretty notable resistances as well, such as the time she was stated to have the greater resistance to mind hacks than Guy Gardner in this specific storyline, and Guy in this specific storyline had already resisted Parallax The guy who's attempting to invade her mind is someone who works for Krona, also wildly powerful with mind hacks, and says that her mind is directly harder to invade than his. This is really impressive. She also has seemingly greater control over her own mind, despite it not being dipped in the blood pits of Yzmalt, which normally grants Red Lanterns intelligence via connecting all the neurons in their brain. She also has a really impressive resistance to magical blood hacks that solo the rest of the entire Red Lantern Corps minus Atrocitus from the 5 inversions, who were like the OG blood mages that actually trained Atrocitus and were the only sole remaining survivors of Space Sector 666. And when it comes to her durability, she can actually tank attacks from Invictus, who's an angel of Vega that Larfleeze managed to kill most of. This guy could literally beat the living crap out of Larfleeze, so this is actually a pretty impressive feat of durability. Speaking of Larfleeze, she also can tank attacks from orange constructs by Larfleeze, which is also impressive. She can tank a blast that's stated to be capable of killing Red Lanterns in general, while holding an enraged Rancor in place for this said attack to happen, and she was fine afterwards. She manages to tank Supergirl's heat vision at point blank range. She tanks multiple attacks from Atrocitus consistently throughout the entire series, specifically during the New 52 Red Lantern series. She also manages to tank a construct of Rancor, who at one point in time held off the entire majority of the Red Lantern Corps with said constructs, which included Atrocitus. Also manages to tank attacks from one of the greatest assassins in the universe, known as Fatality, wielding a star Sapphire ring, and just gets amped off of it. Also, like I said earlier, manages to fight a majority of the Red Lantern Corps, and she's fine for pretty much the majority of them, and has a unique immunity to the blood pits of Yzmalt. She's tanked planetary defense guns and is completely fine, as well as being chokeslammed by Atrocitus in prior versions to the New 52. She can survive having her neural pathways reopened by being dipped in the blood pits of Yzmalt. Tanks attacks from a guy who's one of Krona's goons and was physically and mentally empowered by thousands of psychics. Can throw hands and tank attacks from Kilowog. Can survive attacks from multiple Green Lanterns at the exact same time, and arguably most impressive of all, tanks 3 Green Lantern blasts to the face while they are amped by a Blue Lantern, arguably one of the most notable Blue Lanterns besides Saint Walker Worth. In terms of physical or like energy blast AP, she is pretty brutal in this department, as she can literally just jump on Green Lantern Guy and make him scream out in pain. She can beam struggle against multiple Green Lanterns amped by a Blue Lantern, including Guy. The same guy threw hands with Hal Jordan pretty safely. She can place Atrocitus into a headlock and even draw blood from Atrocitus, which is insane. She casually solos 2 Red Lanterns and then goes to throwing hands straight up on his fucking neck to Rancor, which is wildly impressive. She manages to overpower Star Sapphire Fatality, who normally fights John Stewart as well as like other notable Green Lanterns, and her constructs while in a weakened state, and none of the other Red Lanterns present can break out of these. Goes full Darth Vader mode and gives into her hatred to shatter a construct of Fatality while still in a weakened state, and afterwards manages to entirely destroy a Star Sapphire ring. She can throw hands with multiple members of the Third Army that can absolutely shred Reds with powerful hacks such as Scorch, even holding off 3 at a time physically. She can flex out of constructs by Rancor. This is impressive because these constructs held most of the Red Lantern Corps at bay earlier by holding them back. She can knock back Atrocitus when he's at his most powerful, defeats Scalix, another notable Red Lantern, in a 1v1 in just a few seconds. She slaps the fuck out of that Red Lantern Supergirl later on down the road, and manages to hold an enraged Rancor in place. She can one-tap a Red Lantern and just flat out kill him by ripping him in half. She can throw hands with Monk, who's a notable Indigo Lantern outside of Indigo 1. Her napalm hacks can even hold off Orange Lanterns, and as well as physically contend with them, and manages to actually harm Larfleeze with those blood hacks as well, making him scream out, "Ah!" Her napalm blood hacks also managed to harm Invictus, that angel from earlier as well. She can create explosions that bolo Simon and Jessica, and then also just immediately going to kicking their asses. And she can also physically contend with Kale Riggin, a notable Sinestro Corps member who wields 2 rings into combat. Bleez also has some actually interesting constructs, although I'll be frank, she does not use them often, but when she does, they're very dangerous. She has an amazing construct control for a Red Lantern, which isn't like usual outside of Rancor. Now, she can literally control her constructs up to a planetary distance. I mean, even further than that, depending on how far you choose to look at this. But she literally creates a dagger that encircles an entire planetary defense system across an entire planet and kills every single member that is in that system, which is wildly impressive. She rolls up on Simon and Jessica as Green Lanterns, both who are pretty strong at this point in time, and literally just wraps them up with whips and one-shots them both. Bleez is no slouch in the speed department either. She announces herself to at least 4 Green Lanterns empowered by a Blue Lantern ring here, and none of them can react before she snatches up Guy. She can travel entire space sectors casually to enforce the concept of rage. She blitzes an enraged Rancor, outspeeds the best of the Blue Lanterns, being Saint Walker's attacks and hacks. Can travel through entire solar systems in just like 3 panels. She can even blitz at Invictus and be the first one to make it to him, despite Saint Walker, Kyle Rayner, Arkillo, Monk, and Fatality being here, and Sade, as well as the Weaponer of Cord. So traditionally when it comes to the not highest tier characters within verse, I like to focus more on feats than statements, but it's also important to bring up statements when it comes to any character. But take some of these as a big if true. She's stated to have some level of immunity to the violet light and is considered a rival to Atrocitus within the databooks of DC. She is one of the original Red Lanterns that Atrocitus had gathered. Atrocitus is afraid of her intellect when she is scheming, and is not afraid to fight to the death even against Atrocitus, according to Atrocitus. She's not opposed to torture, is constantly scheming to overthrow Atrocitus, and even manages to lead a group of Red Lanterns against Atrocitus down the way. She's considered somebody worthy to be a Star Sapphire, and is not opposed to using flirtation hacks to get in her way. Yo, this one's here for my boy Maverick, bro. Here's the flirtation hacks popping off. Atrocitus also admits she's was worth fearing while not in his absolute prime. And she makes quite a pretty good shit talker too. So here's where I'm going to provide just a little bit of additional context for those who made it so far. And don't forget to like and subscribe down low, because none of y'all motherfuckers subscribe to this channel even though we're blowing up like crazy. Alright? So, Bleez is a Red Lantern who's arguably consistently in the Red Lantern Corps at number 2 or 3, almost always. And that really does depend at what point in time, whenever it comes to that being the 2 or 3. So, if Atrocitus is alive, she's almost always behind Atrocitus. If Atrocitus isn't there, she's going to be the one in charge. If Guy Gardner is a Red Lantern like he was in the New 52, chances are she's going to be right behind Guy Gardner. So traditionally around that 2. Now, if both Atrocitus and Guy are alive, she'll be like number 3 Red Lantern. The rest of the Red Lantern Corps doesn't really want to mess with her. Even characters who might be, depending on how you choose to look at it, more powerful than her, like Rancor, just don't traditionally want to mess with her and don't traditionally want to be leading her, because they know she is a wildly powerful schemer and her influence in the Red Lantern Corps is a very scary thing. Now, she's not going to be throwing hands with Atrocitus at any point in time, but the fact that she can throw hands with Guy or anyone else is pretty crazy to consider. Now, Bleez is also my bae, okay? Look at this chick. And this section's definitely for my boy Maverick. She is by far the hottest out of all of the Red Lanterns. So much so, the Star Sapphires, the chicks literally based in love, said, yo, you're so hot, you gotta join the Star Sapphire Corps. Just look at this art, bro. Check out the curves. She's got it all. The scaling, and she's got the looks. Let's go. 30 seconds for my boy Maverick. And make sure that both your hands are either on your keyboard or on your phone. That being said, it's been a blast hanging out, guys. I really appreciate you for sitting back and hanging with some Bleez scaling for me. Expect more content in the future. It's only going to be getting better. Thanks, Jobber, for the thumbnail. Thanks, Maverick, for the request. And I look forward to making more Lantern content for you guys in the future. If you haven't, definitely check out some of my more recent streaming content because, dude, me and the whole Theromax crew have been having a blast on there. And hopefully I can see you guys on one of those streams down the way. So be sure to like and subscribe to the Theromax crew. And we'll see you next time, boys. Later.